Okay, so these next two questions, they go in, they are in connection with that. Since we're talking end times, you specifically mentioned the Antichrist, the first seal that's opened. And this man asks if the Antichrist will lean far left or far right, what we think. And it almost seems kind of like it's, maybe I'm wrong, but in the kind of the pretense in Matthew 24 when Jesus talks about when the Antichrist comes, he'll deceive men, if possible, even the elect. So is this guy, I'm guessing the question stems from, is this guy more of the far left in our current perspective, where the far left tends to be more anti-religious, more atheistic, worldly, new agey, or because it's possible that he'll deceive the elect, is he more of a far right guy and is more convincing to the alt-right religious conservative folks, where they can kind of get deceived by that, and which I get, because it almost seems to me that when I listen to conservative radio, you get the right, I guess, worldview. But a lot of these conservative guys really aren't that solid of believers.
Right, yeah.
And so I can kind of see where he's asking this question. So,
Right. The Antichrist is a deceiver, and so he's a false Christ. And so the when you're asking me if he's far right or far left, first thing I would do with you is go, what do you mean by far right? I pretty much know what most people mean by far left, but what do you mean by far right? And if you're talking about somebody who's religious, somebody who's following the Lord, somebody who has biblical standards, that kind of thing, that is not far right. That was middle of the road for much of my life. It's only become far right because so many people have moved so far to the left. And so it used to be that both Democrats and Republicans were followers of God and believers in God. And now you have much less of that in the area of the far left. And so, a lot of this stuff has to do with perspective. What I am going to tell you, I don't know. I know this. He's trying to deceive the Jews specifically into believing that he's the Messiah. And so he's going to have to come, and there's going to have to be morals about this guy. But ultimately, the Bible teaches that he has no gods except for himself. He wants to make himself God in front of people, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. That's 2 Thessalonians 2:4. And so he's the ultimate anti-religion, anti-God, anti-worship man. He's Satan's man. And so, Satan comes in like an angel of light. And so if you were going to call this guy religious, he'd be religious on the same level that a Jim Jones is religious, or he's a phony, and so he's a successful phony, and so you've got that. But ultimately, when he comes out as to who he is, he's the ultimate egotist. He's the ultimate selfish man. He's the ultimate tyrant. He's the ultimate, absolutely my government rules all kind of guy, and so, when you're looking at the Antichrist, the problem with talking about where he comes from is that most of what the Bible talks about is where he ends up and what he ends up doing, and so he's pro-government, total government control, and that's who he is. He's pro-military, and he goes conquering and to conquer. It's his military might. He's a tyrant in that sense, and he literally wants to conquer the world. And so, obviously, you have left. I mean, that's the whole design of Marxism. And so, you have that. People will come along and say Hitler was right wing. I don't know that guy was right wing. He was, the Nazi Party was a National Socialist Party. And I understand history, and I understand that he took over that thing and did what he wanted with it. But Hitler is another example of that kind of guy. He came in basing his political views on moral standards, and so he wanted to fix the economy in Germany, and that it needed fixing and that kind of stuff. But then you have this mix of stuff, because when he comes in, he gets, he literally had women. He condoned women having sex with multiple partners so that they could have as many Aryan children as possible. Well, that's not biblical. That's not. It's not religious. And so, with Hitler, again, he's a tyrant, and he tied himself up with corporations, that kind of stuff, and that's what you see the left doing right now. And so, this is a mishmash of all kinds of stuff that'll be going on. So, when he comes out at the very beginning, he's going to be a compelling figure. He's going to be. The Bible says that he destroys many through peace. It says in the book of Daniel. And so he's going to be a military figure that brings peace to the world, is what he's going to be promoting. He's going to try to make himself out to be the Jewish Messiah. And so obviously there's a religious element to that, but that only lasts for 3.5 years. And then he does this whole thing where he defiles the Jewish temple. That has to be rebuilt. And so, again, you have that. And so when I look at this, I don't look at it as a far left or a far right type of thing. I just keep it biblical. And so there's he comes in deceiving. When he takes the mask off, you see him for what he is, and he's the ultimate tyrant.